You know
Charles
what?
was...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say Charles was an eminent and distinguished anchor person for the news in the 1930s. He was anchoring the news in 32, 33.
Well, you know,
that was before CBC. That was before with the CRBC, the Canadian Radio Broadcasting Company.
One of the things that you have, I mean, aside from your great talent and your journalistic ability, you do have a wonderful name to be an anchor. I mean, it's true. And as I was thinking about you this afternoon, I thought, what kind of a name is Knowlton anyway? Who or what were you named
Well, it was my
after?
father's name, to be perfectly honest. It was my father's name, and so I just carried on with it. A couple of years, oh no, more than a couple of years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, there was a very nice young couple in Windsor, Ontario, who decided they wanted to name their son Knowlton after my doing the National, and so the poor guy is carrying around the name as well. So there's several Knowltons out there now.
But is it a I mean, why was your father named Knowlton?
Because his father was named Knowlton, so there's been a family going all the way back. Somebody in, I guess it was Calgary, told me that, sent me a nice little letter about the origination of the name, and it was something to do with William the Conqueror coming over, and he had two guys who had saved the day for him on a couple of hills, and he named one Sir Hilton and the other Sir Knowlton, K-N-O-L-L-T-O-N it was at the time. It was such a lovely story, I never really wanted to track it down because I'm sure it isn't true, but it's a nice one to fantasize about. Your roots go back that far.
It is indeed. You're either named after a sir or a hill, so you have to you have to take your choice on that one. Let's go to Margaret in Toronto. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Mr. Nash. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, Margaret. Yourself?
Good, thank you. I just wanted to wish you well on your new future, or your future.
Thank you.
And my question to you is, what was your most memorable story that you covered over your career?
Well, I guess the most memorable, almost stories, would have been the stories about the Kennedys, John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, because I was very lucky when I was in Washington back in the 50s. I was covering something called the Senate Labor Rackets Committee, in which John Kennedy was a member of the committee and Robert Kennedy was the committee counsel. And I was there every day. I was working with CBC and working with the Financial Post and covering the story. And you got to know the people very well. You spent time at the house in Georgetown with John Kennedy, or at the house in Hickory Hill across the river in Virginia with Bob Kennedy. And you developed a relationship that was maintained right through until their assassinations, until their deaths. So that was certainly the most memorable story, was involving the New Frontier, the Kennedys, and Robert Kennedy, because I suppose Robert Kennedy would have to be my hero of my lifetime if I had one.
Was he too much of a hero? Because I was also rereading History on the Run today, and you said that maybe you got too close to both of them, that you venerated them too much?
Yeah, I felt that I might possibly have gotten too close to them when I was, after the assassination of Robert Kennedy particularly, because it hit me rather both professionally as well as personally. And I think perhaps I may have been a little mushier or soppier than I should have been as a journalist. But I think he himself was probably the most compassionate and the most passionate of all of the politicians I've ever run into.
How have you felt about the revelations about Kennedy and his, very active
Well, it depends on the source of the revelations, because some of them, most of them are exaggerations and some of them are true. Certainly his reputation has been tarnished to some degree.
And which one? Are we talking about both or one?
No, I'm only talking about John Kennedy. The accusations about Robert Kennedy, I think, are just a lot of nonsense. But people sell books and they make money by doing making those kinds of accusations about prominent people. But I don't accept any of those in relation to Robert Kennedy. With John Kennedy, it was different. But I think Robert Kennedy could have become a great American president, maybe in this tradition of Franklin Roosevelt. I think he would have been a better president, in fact, than his brother was, however briefly that New Frontier
They are telling me
lasted.
that there's a ton of calls here, so I can't monopolize your time. This is Marcus in Montreal. Hi, Marcus. Are you there? We've been having such weird phone problems lately. Let's go to Glenn in Toronto. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, Glenn.
I wanted to know, with all your experience in having covered political scenes and changes of administration, with all that knowledge of what you've seen politicians do, what would you do with Canada right now? Interest rates are high and unemployment is high, and some hate the NDP and some hate the Conservatives. How would you handle it all after all your experience in the business?
Well, you know, that's one of the great joys of being a journalist, is that you can be a critic without being a participant. And I think I have no idea. We were chatting with politicians and political leaders today, as a matter of fact, and we were talking about all the troubles and trials, the tribulations of the CBC and broadcasting and journalism, and compared to the troubles and trials and tribulations of trying to run the country. And the person I spoke to said that they'd far prefer to have our problems than their problems right now. They are not insoluble. Obviously, they are soluble within the wit of man and womankind, but it's really tough. And I don't think you can ever expect miracle cures. Things aren't going to change overnight, no matter what formula you use. You just can't do that. And you have to be more patient, I think. As long as you're in the right track, as long as you're moving down the right direction. I don't think that's been really determined what is that right direction as yet.
Well, that was a good journalistic answer, because you you didn't direct us in any direction. You didn't take a stand there. But have you ever been attracted by politics?
No, never really wanted to. I love to be maybe behind the scenes in politics. That might be kind of fun to do, but I've never want to run for office. In a way, I think it was Charlie Lynch once said that a reporter running for office is like a jockey trying to be the horse. You're not the horse. There are other people who are responsible for that. And I think that's sometimes a mistake some journalist colleagues of ours make, in the sense that we are the observers. We're not the participants. We're not the story. We're the people who are watching others try to achieve things. And I think we have to be careful that we
want to watch CBC as much. Now, my question is, how has CBC broadcasting changed since the death of Barbara Frum?
Well, they're the practical thing about the programs that have changed. Barbara, nobody could ever replace Barbara. She was unique in what she did and how she did it, and she was made tremendous contributions to the credibility of the CBC, and I think to the enlightenment of the Canadian public through her journalism. And so you could never replace her. So that changes. That's a fundamental change. And it was assumed that this would be a time, then as time went on through the summer, to make some larger changes. Since you couldn't replace Barbara, let's do something that would be quite different, and there wouldn't be any appearance of somebody trying to replace Barbara. So what's happened is a melding of the two programs, the two concepts of the Journal and the National, which is now into prime time news at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock across the country. And I think this is we're still working on it. It's still being molded and shaped. They didn't have very much time in which to get their concepts as honed as well as we were able to do when we were moving the National and the Journal into the 10 o'clock time period. We had about 2 years to work on it. They only had about 2 months.
What do you think, though, about the 9 o'clock time period? Because you pushed so hard to get it from 11 to 10. And what about it going back an hour?
We worked for, gosh, maybe 15 years, I guess, one way or another, when I was in Washington, and when I was here as head of News and Current Affairs, and then when I was chief anchor of the National, to move it from 11 o'clock to either 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Both hours we thought were really quite good. We decided in the end, and were given in the end, 10 o'clock, which was quite good. 9 o'clock, there are simply more people watching than there are at any other time in the night, and that's really a big compliment to journalism, to look at the success of the National and the Journal at 10 o'clock and say, let's try and move this into the 9 o'clock slot, and it'll be the anchor, basically, for the entire evening. And that's what's being done. And I think that it is succeeding and is beginning to find itself. It just takes time to do these things. The production people need some patience and time, and an audience. Because we're asking a lot. We're changing the time zone, time periods, and we're changing the nature of the program. So we asked a lot of the audience, and it's just going to take some time and patience to be able to achieve the kind, the level and quality and quantity of audience that we want.
We have to take some time now for commercials. So we will do that for a couple of minutes, and Petrie and Prime with my guest, Knowlton Nash, will continue after this.